In the West, there were whores aplenty. Sin was in, and back in the good old days, cocaine was even found in wine, and the cure for alcoholism was said to be heroin. Thanks to technology, you didn't have to slum it at the opium den. You could get high at home. Take a trip out west to the frontier of sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
They didn't have rock and roll, but they had sex and drugs. And the sex was usually paid sex, and the drugs were cocaine, opium, alcohol, morphine.
The cowboys' drug of choice in the Wild West was plainly booze. No organized sports. The way that men would pass time would be to spend it in saloons. Drinking was the most important aspect of male bonding in the 19th century. There were no mothers to tell you not to do it, no wives to tell you not to do it. It was almost like an extended frat party that lasted from 1848 to 1898.
Sex was not talked about in polite company, but you could always find someone to tell you where to get it.
Men viewed sex with kind of a 19th century double standard. They probably felt that their wives should be home and doing domestic duties, and they may have even had guilty and dirty thoughts about sex, so that was the role of the prostitute. There were two very distinctive types of women. There were good girls and bad girls.
Come right on up here, step in nice and close. All you never want to see, right?
One unusual venue for these bad girls would be at traveling sideshows. These would often have special added attractions on offer for the right price.
Coot shows were generally family acts. Dad would turn the tip, Mom and the girls would dance. They'd also pick up dancers as they moved through town. They would look for a girl that maybe had an argument with her boyfriend, or a girl that's just a little bit too impressed by all these nickel-dime acts, that they might come up to and say, you know, you're very pretty, would you like to be in show business? Anything that you can imagine would happen in these shows.
There was even a popular act called the lunch counter for guys who were tired of home cooking.
I'll let you think about that one.
Often the freaks and sword swallowers made extra money turning tricks. Showmen would keep an eye out for any cowpokes in the crowd who seemed really interested in the contortionist and approached them after the performance with an offer of a private show. If you missed getting your kicks at the traveling sideshow, there was always one place in town where you could unholster your pistol, at the brothel. Seattle's most successful madam was Lou Graham. This undisputed queen of the lava beds arrived in 1889 at a time when there were as many as 2,500 fallen floozies doing business. To all the lonely lumbermen, Seattle evoked an image of a girl in red stockings and a short skirt with a sparkling glass in her hand, paint on her cheeks, and the devil in her eyes.
Prostitutes were very rarely called prostitutes, let alone whores, in the Old West. Most commonly, they were referred to as the soiled doves, or the women of the sisterhood, or those of the demi-monde, the half-world, kind of the underworld.
There are also some lighter and more frivolous names, such as strumpet, and my favorite, chippies. For the men, there are fewer: hunters, mongers, clients, and of course the best known is John.
During the 1880s, the people of Seattle decided that they too should get in on the act. For 10 years, prostitution was taxed.
They actually paid for a lot of construction. This paid for the paving of the roads. About 87% of the revenue that came into the city was through the taxation of prostitutes.
One unusual feature to Lou Graham's knocking shop was that part of her brothel was underground. After the Great Fire of 1889, Seattle had decided to rebuild downtown with its streets one floor higher than before.